Have you ever caught yourself thinking, I'm not the kind of mom my mom was? Am I doing it wrong? The truth is that motherhood today looks completely different than the version most of us grew up watching. In this episode, I sit down with Denise Tallcott to talk about the quiet pressure so many of us feel to recreate the special motherhood that they saw growing up. Even though our lives and our careers, the expectations, the pace, the environment, the support system, all of that is completely different now. We unpack where the guilt comes from, how to tell the difference between inherited expectations and what actually works for your family, and why doing motherhood differently doesn't mean you're failing. It just probably means you're evolving and doing life aligned with what you most value. See you inside. Hey, y'all, I'm your host, Courtney Cecil, and welcome back to the Life Management System. Inside this episode, I'm welcoming Denise Tallcott, the heart and host behind the Working Moms Redefined podcast, where she creates space for women to have honest conversations about the pressures and possibilities of motherhood and career. And goodness knows we've got enough of those pressures. So Denise is no stranger to the mic because in addition to her podcast, she actually is a former radio personality who is incredibly passionate about empowering high achieving women to lead with confidence, clarity, and courage without sacrificing their values or well-being. And you know, if you have been here, how important the values piece is to me. So naturally, she is quite a match for us. So Denise is a boy and girl mom, and she is a Midwest gal with a Midwest heart. So I think you'll be just as delighted as I am to have her here. So Denise, welcome to the Life Management System.
Thank you, Courtney. What an intro. I love getting to connect with people who have like-minded values and thoughts, and what a great conversation we're going to have today. Thank you
I
for letting me be part
know.
of it.
Yeah, we are. And it's so this topic, I believe, is going to be hot, Denise, because when I think about what I get in the DMs from the women I connect with, it is one of two themes. It is always like, I'm spending never enough time, like essentially just some way of describing they're in survival mode. And the other major theme that I get is the mom guilt over I don't get to spend time with my kids. I don't love that I am delegating the responsibility of someone else raising them. I don't feel like I'm ever doing enough for anybody, whether that be my children, my partner, my work. I feel so torn. And that, mom guilt is real, and it is felt and very heavy for so many people. And quite frankly, I think it's a little BS that there's no such thing as dad guilt because we carry so much of that. But it's clearly, even if it's unfair and not necessarily something that I feel like should be there, it still is. And there's so many reasons that it is. And I want to honor that. And I'm excited to unpack that with you, Denise. So, when I think about mom guilt, for me, it is often because I see my standards of how I was raised by my super mom who stayed at home and her responsibility was caring for us, and by my mother-in-law who wanted to do the same thing. In fact, my husband and I first bonded in this whole spirit of wow, we were raised and had a great childhood because our moms were so available to us and we want that for ourselves, which is laughable that I am here 20 years later, almost to the day, having this conversation with you on this very topic. So, Denise, I would love to hear from you just to start the conversation. How does mom guilt show up for you on a day-to-day
Mm.
basis?
What you are experiencing is so real. I don't want to lose sight of that, nor take away from and pain might be a little bit of a harsh word, but honestly, like noise that fills your mind because of comparison. And to your point, exactly, you and your husband both were raised by stay-at-home moms. I was as well, so was my husband. And if we are modeled parenting a certain way, why would we not expect ourselves to show up the same way? Because we weren't shown something different. They don't teach this kind of stuff in school. But then when you 20, 25, 30 years later have kids and realize that you're a different person than your mom was and have different elements and dynamics in our lives, why are we comparing ourselves as who we are as moms to the mom that we had? Well, first of all, Why wouldn't you? Let's remove the shame and the guilt that you're putting on yourself for being like, why do I even compare? Because logistically, you know that you are not comparing apples to apples. You're comparing apples to oranges. And 2 years ago, when the concept of Working Moms Redefined podcast came about, I was going through a meditation in Phoenix, Arizona. Like Courtney said, I am from West Central Illinois, cornfields literally out the office window and out of my office window in town, literally. And so when we go to Phoenix, Arizona, and there's this thing called a manifestation, and you work through issues that you might be having, and you realize, hey, you're not the mom that your mom was. And that's okay. And that has become a theme for the Working Moms Redefined podcast, our courses, and working with clients one on one like yourself, because that is a thought that enters our mind. I'm not the mom that my mom was. And then it's what we couple with that to boost our self-esteem and our self-worth and our self-confidence that has power. And so then we've coupled it with, and that's okay.
It's hard to appreciate when you're in the thick of it that not only our circumstances are different, so therefore what we're able to provide is different. Some for the good, some for the bad. There are some sacrifices that come with it. I mean, I think about both my mom and my aunt. They are Martha Stewarts, like little tiny
Oh,
Martha Stewarts running around. The everything every time they host, everything they do is done with a silver spoon and done so flawlessly. And I just practically cannot do that. But at the same time, I am also able to provide other and different things because of the choices I've made. So
right.
I am able to take my boys on trips that my parents were never able to because of the choice I've made. So it's not that either of us are wrong or did it poorly. In fact, we're both doing it awesome and we're doing enough for our kids too. And that's the part that's lost for so many people is
Mm.
that our kids love us and we are enough for them. And it's just so hard to feel that when you're in the thick of the day to day, when you feel like there's never enough of you to go around.
That thought, I want to give, because you're not the only one that thinks that. I want to give all of us hugs because it means you care. It,
Yeah.
it means you care. And I love to feel fancy. So, your example of your aunt having the Martha Stewart and serving things with the silver, pick something that makes you feel fancy. I was once told by my coach, every day can be fancy if you choose to make it fancy. And so I might not be able to make mashed potatoes and put them in this beautiful dish. I'm a big fan of the Bob Evans microwave mashed potatoes and they are clutch. So I give and take because I would rather spend more time with the kids than mash up potatoes for 20 minutes. For me, and I didn't even mean to do this. This glass, if you're watching on Courtney's YouTube, is fancy to me. It is at a really nice restaurant here close in town, and I feel so fancy when I drink it. And so my gift to myself is I'm going to buy those glasses so that I feel fancy at home. And then when I drink out of them, I feel fancy. And so it's picking those little things to boost our confidence and realize, like, hey, my value is important to travel. You and I are very similar in that. I didn't travel. I grew up on a farm and we had livestock. And so if the cows didn't eat, you didn't make money. So you didn't leave. Well, for me and our family, I wanted something different. And so my value of travel is a precedence over spending time at home and doing XYZ. When you pick and identify your values, and then you compare yourself less to your parents' values to yours, the shame gets a little quieter.
Yes, yes, yes. Amen. That is 120% everything you just said, Denise. I didn't get to travel in part because my dad owned his own business that was very incumbent on being physically co-located where he worked. He's a civil engineer by technical training, but he essentially spent time in mining and land reclamation, which is all a very physical process. So it's not like he could work from his computer on the go like we have the ability to do now. So part of it was just the mechanics of it. But the other part is it was just never, it wasn't, to your point, it wasn't something that my parents valued in the same way that I value it. I married somebody my mother-in-law is from Colombia, South America. She was a foreign exchange student at UNC Chapel Hill, where she met my father-in-law. So I have married into an international family, and have had the good fortune of having au pairs and friends from college that are international that have really inspired a lot in me. And I have said some absolutely embarrassing things because I didn't get to experience travel in the way that I do now, where I was
Mm.
just so sheltered. It wasn't quite the same as yours. We did not grow up on a farm. We grew up on, 60-ish acres, but I grew up in farm country in Little Tazewell, Virginia. So it was just a very incubated place. So my lack of, I don't know, that how insular it was certainly kept me in this hermetic bubble of Southwest Virginia in ways that I didn't get to experience and engage with other things that there's no harm in that experience, but it just made me want to double down and my value of experiencing the world for myself and exposing my boys to that. So it's just it to your point, giving ourselves permission to say, you know what, we learn and we grow and our conditions are different. I think that's part of the other lever that is important to acknowledge here is that you think about how hard it is to live on a single income for most of America now. Dual income families are the majority, 80 plus percent. We don't live geographically around the corner like we did. Many of us were growing up where our grandparents were right there to help us. I mean, I have no family help here, and it's just a faster pace. So when you talk about the Bob Evans mashed potatoes, you gotta pick and choose those battles because with the pace that we're moving right now, the mashed potatoes are hard and not really always worth it. I totally feel that.
It makes me think of the scene that you said. That for me is when I really realized that motherhood looks completely different today than it did for my mom, because my mom would always be the one home when we got off the bus. She would always be the one to bake these freaking delicious sugar cookie cutouts. And she would take the time not only to make them in the shape that we needed, but to ice them and to cool them. And she decorated them exactly why we needed. And they were delicious. I mean, literally, my mom was known for these cookies throughout my entire school. Hey, is your mom bringing Easter cookies? Hey, is she gonna bring those volleyball cookies? And she loved it. That was so life giving to her. The first time, Sydney, who is now 9, the first time that she needed cookies for school, I remember looking at the calendar and thinking, I don't have time to make chocolate chip cookies, let alone these adorable little sugar cutout cookies. And it was then when I chose to stop comparing who I am today to the mom that my mom was 30 years ago. And so we bought pre-baked cookies. And I remember the day that those got delivery. If you don't have grocery delivery to your house, do it. It's the most life-changing thing ever. And I remember when those got delivered and the kids were so excited. They said, "Ah, oh, we get these cookies. They're so fun," because they were colorful and they had sprinkles on them. And I said, "Yes, you're going to take them to school tomorrow." And they were so excited. And that helped honestly like quiet the noise that I was telling myself as well, because I was comparing to what I would have felt, because I would have judged those cookies because my mom was the one that always made those. And it's in that point in time, and I use that example often of it's okay to buy bought cookies, whether it's a mix that you add water to, or you literally put them from the clear plastic container into your own. Whatever works for you, it's okay. I love like that mom guilt noise. It's often compared to the phenomenon that so many of us are hearing about food noise right now. So many are saying, quiet the food noise. These drugs will quiet the food noise. You won't even think about food. Man, if there was a drug for quieting the mom guilt noise, sign me up. But it's not cookies, but it's a step. You know what I mean? And I love to think
Yeah.
about how can you quiet that guilt that you're putting on yourself? It's practice. It takes practice.
Well, you know what I heard out of all of that, Denise, is your kids were probably more excited because they got sprinkles. Like we are setting the
It's the
bar
little things.
higher because we see what could be, but
Yeah.
kids don't require us to be anything more than what we are.
Ooh, that's a good phrase. today I was not feeling 100%. Like I usually have quite a bit of energy. I am go go go, but today I just wasn't feeling 100%. And as I'm driving to school, Hudson said, "Are you going to work from home today?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I'm going to. I'm going to shift my meetings so that they're online instead of in person. I want to be able so that when you get home, I'm the best mom to be able to show up for you in that way." And he looked at me and he said, "Mom, you don't have to do anything to be the best mom." And I started tearing up because I'm like, heck yeah,
Oh,
parenting, right, is on point
yeah.
today because
Yeah.
it's day by day basis, let's be honest. And two, what a good reminder. You are who your kids need you to be with literally you doing nothing, whether you're
Yes.
baking cookies or buying them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, their standards are you. Whatever that is, like
Yeah.
you were intended to be their parent for a reason. Your cookie story reminds me. So Indra, the old PepsiCo CEO, wrote a book, My Life in Full. Have you ever read it?
No, but I'll write it down now.
It is, yeah, it's a biography. So it is her life, but she came over to America from India, and certainly education was a high value in that family, and work ethic, getting herself to a point where she's coming over here as a first generation American, and then she makes her way into CEO and chairman of PepsiCo. Like, homegirl is impressive, but she wrote, she has, I don't actually know if it's an autobiography or biography, so I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. But it's called My Life in Full. It's her story. And she starts it by sharing a story of how it was cookie, she was responsible for bringing cookies to school. She, of course, didn't have any. And she had this pressure of performing and by bringing the best of the best cookies. Now, I will say she had the absolute cheat code having Frito-Lay in her back pocket because she had, according to her story, she had the chefs at Frito-Lay bake her some cookies that she could take. Absolute cheat code. I think the point of it, I'm trying to remember, I think was around the importance of delegating and outsourcing, which I'm a huge fan of. Actually, the last episode that aired, episode 75, it was fully focused on that. So I'll make sure to link that in the show notes. But like, absolute cheat code to be able to be like, hey, chefs at my company, please, please bougie it up for my kids right now. Good for
Extra
you.
sprinkles.
I know. So, when you think, Denise, about where some of those bigger gaps are for you between how you parent and how your mom parented, what feels like it's most present?
I had fabulous parents, mom and dad both. I think they had me when I was like 22. I love to think about what my therapist says. When you go into your therapist office, I know that they are amazing individuals and you put them to the side right now. It does not take away from their depth and what they have given you, but right now we have to give ourselves permission to realize that they did a great job and there were some areas that they could have improved in. So when you think about this, when I get asked the question about gaps in parenting or differences. It's never to discredit what they had done, or maybe if they had known what we know now, they might do things differently. So I always love to preface that by saying, like, we are not critiquing, we are not judging, we are observing and making our own calls.
We've evolved and
So
learned.
we've evolved and learned. So as we are evolving and learning, we are in our home spanking less, if at all. I was a first child, and for all of our first childs out there, really, it only took us once to be like, "Oh, okay, I'm not gonna do that again." Like the second child's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna laugh when you spank me because you think that was hard." And so my parents spanked a lot. I mean, it was very traditional farming family. And when I say spanked a lot, they spanked me once, they spanked my sister quite often. So for us, learning that connection happens, you have to have connection before correction. And so, not that my parents didn't have a connection with me, but it was instant like, hey, I'm going to count to 10. And if you don't stop what you're doing, you're getting a spanking. Whereas now, our conversations with our kids look a little different. It's more of that curiosity. It's asking, hey, can you help me understand why you maybe, for instance, messed up your sister's bed after she had made it? Or can you take a second and explain why you're reacting so much more to this than you normally do? Sydney is going through the lovely puberty years, and not too long ago, we were crying in the corner over she's curly hair, and I pulled her hair too hard when I was doing it. And On a normal day, that wouldn't have phased her at all. There is a small part of me that still reacts to a situation because of that gap from the parenting that I had growing up of, we don't act like that, get your together type of thing. Now, again, they did this out of love and they just did not know. So now it's okay, I'm going to sit here. I don't have time, but I will make time and I'm going to sit here. I don't have to hold you. I don't have to touch you, but I want you to know that my presence is here for you. And that is different. And that is a gap that I really do love and appreciate because we are definitely parenting more so out of connection versus fear.
First of all, the connection before correction is genius. I'm absolutely going to use that again. I will quote you every time. That's beautiful. But I also
I do that
would
with
like,
you for your earrings. I
oh,
love you and your earrings. She always put earrings in. And we'll be sure to link the podcast episode that Courtney was on with us, and she gives us all sorts of time management tips. But you continue. Yes,
yes.
connection before correction.
Yeah, I love that. So, one thing that you called out that I really appreciate and think is worth acknowledging is how much harder it is as they get older. So, when the kids are little, I mean, you just feel like you have no free time because your energy is so spent by having to draw their baths and brush their teeth and feed them and do all the things. Like they're truly 120% dependent on you. And there's just this false narrative and assumption that as they get older, you get that time back because they're doing stuff themselves. And it took me a while to make the connection and be like, wow, most of my clients, not all of them, some of them have preschool age kids, but most of my clients have kids that are kindergarten or above where they're independent, but they're just totally consumed by the data. You've got homework, you have activities, and as you're acknowledging, Denise, you have really big feelings. And that's been the difference between how I feel like I was parented, which was, again, it's all evolution, it's all learning. So it's no fault of anybody's because it's just a different approach. But I got some spankings for sure with the wooden spoon, especially. I got wooden spoons over the knuckles. I got soap in the mouth. I have tried soap in the mouth too, by the way, with my boys. They have each gotten it once. It was enough for them to understand. Like the talking back just kept happening. So I have leveraged that one. But more than anything, I take the very long hours often that it takes to smooth over the feelings and help them understand that we're there for them and I'm here to process and I'm here to listen, or I'm just here to make sure they understand that I'm with them even in the hard times. And that is hard and it takes so much time. And it is truly a sun up to sundown job when they are like third grade and above. It's exhausting. I was not prepared for that.
Parenting does not get easier, it gets different.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are older generations that say, oh, it'll get easier when they get old, or even dare they say it'll get harder. I don't think it's a judgment call on if it gets easier or harder. It gets different. It is always challenging and it is always amazing and it is different.
Yeah, it is very different. And I've always heard that, but what I underappreciated is it still takes as much time. And that's like, yes, it's different, but I thought it was more because you're dealing with big emotions and like you're getting doors slammed in your face and
Mhm.
you're having to make sure that you can trust who they're hanging out with. Yes, all of that's true, but also all of that takes just as much time and actually more time because at least when they're little, it's like, oh, you got nap time. You're going to put them down to bed at like
Right.
8 or 8:30 and then you close the door and they're done. And it is not played out like that at all. um,
One thing that's been clutch in our family is quiet time. So on the weekends, Eve, you don't have to you're not napping, obviously, but we get to go do things. We don't have to do things. We get to go in our rooms for an hour. You play by yourself, you read, you de-stress, you calm, but that has been clutch for all of us. It's like a midday reset. Now, those happen few and far between because we're so go, 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 as so many of our listeners are. But it's something that I always try to teach them is that it's okay to be by yourself. You don't need others to entertain you.
yeah, actually, so we did that when the boys were little, when they outgrew naps. I was like, I'd have friends that'd be like, oh, but my kid doesn't nap anymore. I'm like, you don't send them to their room? I don't care. Like, I don't understand. Why are you doing this to yourself?
Yeah.
So I for sure capitalized on that so much. But now, yeah, with activity schedule, it just unfortunately does not really look like that. But I want downtime. Like, I want alone time
Sure.
too.
And that's okay too. I think that's one thing too. Like, I never remember my mom sitting down to watch a TV show or a movie with us. She was always go, go, go. Probably she was prepping those mashed potatoes or those cookies for the next day. And
Yeah.
I'm going to choose time, right? And so it is so important for me to cuddle on the couch with the kids on a morning if we have time on the weekend, because that is something that I never necessarily had. Now, mom was great at bedtime. Like, she laid there and rubbed our backs and asked all of the questions. Me, bedtime, I'm like, we gotta go. You need to go down. I want my time. And so it's just trading off while not discrediting what was done by any means.
You know, what this brings up for me, Denise, is I hosted a retreat, a luxury retreat for working moms like 3 weeks
It
ago.
looks so fun. It looked
Oh,
like
it
a
was
great time.
pretty fabulous. Highly recommend it. The Amaret Resort in West Palm Beach, fabulous. Like, it was just magical. But in so we were in session and programming type session after a good workout for the 3 mornings, and then we'd go into like free time and whatever. But in the session, I think it was on the second day, my friend Christine that was there said, I feel like I carry all of this pressure to have to look busy, to have to, like, when somebody walks into the kitchen, like, oh, I'm sitting here doing stuff, like, look at me doing things. Or when somebody walks into my living room, like, I feel uncomfortable and seen when I'm sitting on the couch doing nothing, like, actually relaxing. And she's like, what the heck, dude? Like, I need to call a timeout on that. And I need to figure out, like, I need to create, to somehow alleviate that pressure and that guilt to feel like I always need to be busy, because one, it's unhealthy, but two, we're sending that message to our kids as well. So I love that you called that out, but I also would love to know, like, what in your experience do you carry guilt over? Whether that guilt is because your mom did it differently, or you feel like you have expectations that others are projecting onto you that aren't really aligned with what you want to focus on.
Great question. Marriage counseling will teach you a lot of things. And for your friend's example of being busy and has to be doing all of the time, for me, that actually didn't have, I felt the same way, but that didn't actually have anything to be as a mom. That was for how I thought I was supposed to show up as a wife. Because my dad was the breadwinner and my mom was the one working in the home. And that's why I don't love that phrase, like working in the home. Because do you want your home to be work, or do you want your home to be a source of peace and rest? And for us, I really want it to be more of a place of peace. Now, granted, does work happen? For sure. But as I was modeled as a wife, you were supposed to go, go, do, do. You were the one that was running, you were the one that was cooking, all of those things. And so rest, we learned through marriage counseling, to me, was not being a good wife. And so I'm interested, maybe if you would, to take that back to your friend, like, hey, is it because of how your mom modeled being a wife for you? Because that's what it was for me. And what I didn't love that we went into marriage counseling for a whole different reason, but man, you learn a whole heck of a lot about yourself too. What I didn't love is that it is such a huge priority for me for our kids to be able to share their thoughts and feelings and for them to feel confident and grow in their confidence. As so many of us know in this type of work, oftentimes those things that we really focus on are because we did not necessarily feel like we had those when we were growing up. And so that was, of course, huge things. Well, ironically, I mean, marriage counseling for us was 3 years ago. Ironically, those things that I was trying to teach them, I still couldn't apply in my marriage because my mom as a wife did not portray those, right? You didn't cause an argument because you just didn't share your thoughts. And so for me, I was the typical, like, oh, I'm just going to keep that and stuff down my feelings. And then, 6 weeks later, I bring out everything and the kitchen sink. It was not healthy for any of us. And so trusting that my feelings were going to, one, have validity in the conversation, and two, not push him away, while also that's the best way to model to our kids that their thoughts and feelings matter too, is when you share them in front of them to your partner. And so those were really big things for me as a wife that I needed to conquer for me personally. If I wanted to put my foot where my mouth is, right? I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to not be able to say like, "Hey, do as I say, not as I do." And so that was the action step I needed to take.
Yeah, I think at the higher elevation too, around guilt and the way that we compare ourselves to what used to be, I think it's really important to, as you've acknowledged, that it doesn't just impact our ability and how we show up for our kids. It also naturally impacts our marriages in very different ways. And it's in some ways liberating. Like I have a couple friends who literally work because they want to be independent and never want to be beholden to a partner. Um, so they can, for whatever reasons, you can fill in the blank. There are many people who are just like, no, I want to be able to spend my money how I want to spend it. I don't have to ask permission. Some of it, of course, some of us work because of purpose or intellectual stimulation or socialization. There's so many reasons that women decide to work. But at the end of the day, it still has an impact on our relationships in ways that could be positive or could be holding us back. And if we're looking in the rear view mirror the whole time to see how our parents led, sure, there are lessons there for us, but certainly it's hard to and unfair to compare ourselves to what that looked like, to like what's in the rear view mirror. So I'm curious your take, Denise, like how would somebody know whether what they're doing and how they're activating their life is truly aligned with what's important to their family, like their current
Mhm.
nuclear family, instead of the rear view mirror, instead of expectations, instead of comparing themselves to others?
Two thoughts come to mind, and that's a great question, Courtney. So let's go back to that value conversation. So I am a John Maxwell certified business coach, and he often stresses the importance of values. And so if by chance you're comparing you and how you show up to a different person, you got to see if the values are aligned because then stop, right? So I always love to check your values. One saying that I always keep at the forefront of my mind is people will never forget how you made them feel. People will, I mean, because you can think of that, right? People that have made you feel amazing and loved and seen and cared for, you're like, oh my gosh, I love spending time. I love being around them. And people who are like, ugh, they give you that ick feeling. You just never forget how they made you feel. And so when I look at how do I know if something that we are doing and modeling and teaching works for our family, I look at their reaction. 90% of a conversation is nonverbal. 90%. So that means 10% of every conversation are the words that you speak. There's a whole conversation to be had about, okay, that's why we really got to be aware of the words that we use. But 90% is nonverbal. So, what are we doing when we look at the people who these values and the teachings are impacting? Are we noticing how they react to us based on how we make them feel? That's how I love to test something. If Hudson, who is 7, and the boy can't stop what he's doing and listen, first we try to get him to like make eye contact. But if he is so disengaged, it's not a value of his. We have set family values, but if they have their own individual, Sydney, she loves to help and take care of people. She already told me, she's like, hey, this weekend, I'm going to make protein balls for our class. And yes, we still live in the Midwest where you don't have to purchase things. I mean, again, you sure can, but we can still bring homemade treats. And she's like, I want to make protein balls for the entire class and I want to give them to, so I'm going to need 36. I said, fabulous. So she wants to make them feel a certain way. That tells me that us teaching the importance of serving others resonates with her. Hudson could give two craps. He's like, I just want to eat protein balls. And so it's being aware of how your values show up in your partner or in your kids, or dare I say, even you. If you are feeling a dread of, oh man, I don't want to go do this. Well, does it not align with the value and you're forcing it? I love to think about that.
That is truly the crux of everything I teach. So I think like the bigger theme is around intentionality, but the way that I help women build intentionality is getting clear on what they value. Because when you're clear on what you value, you know what to prioritize. And when you know what you should prioritize, you know how to spend your resources, your time, your money, and your energy. And time in particular is very finite. So it is that much more important that the time you're spending is truly aligned with what you value. But I'm with Hudson. I just want to eat the protein balls.
And that's okay.
I
We
get
need
it.
people like you to eat our protein balls because otherwise we don't feel like we did a good job.
Yeah, yeah. I'm there. I do not cook. It is not my thing. So Denise, to bring us home, I know that the message that you are sharing is touching the hearts of people out there and the listeners right now. So I'm sure that someone that is tuned in is thinking, like, I am feeling like I'm constantly failing because my motherhood and version of it looks very different than the one I grew up with or the one that I see other people leading. What is one truth that you want that person to know and hear from you?
Straight up, you can do hard things. Building a belief that you can do hard things looks different each and every day. But acknowledging that what you're attempting to do is hard, giving yourself credit for that, and then moving forward and reflecting back on, oh, that was hard in the moment, but yet I did it. I did a hard thing. So, so important. And then I want to go back on something specific that you said. You're not failing. There is, in my mind, and what I teach, there is not an option to fail if you've learned something. Because if you've learned something from a mess up, that's not a failure, that is a lesson. And how we view things is how we do things. So if you view your life as something that you are failing at, bummer. No wonder you don't feel great. But if we view our life as something that we get to do and that we are constantly learning, that's a lesson, that's not a failure.
Yeah, the growth, I mean, the growth is so important. And it's exactly the premise of half the conversations we had today, Denise, because we had the good fortune of learning from other people, mostly in the, generations before us. And certainly there were things that we would love to be able to do that they did that we just don't have the capacity for. But there's also a lot that we get to evolve. And I think that a growth mindset is just one of the most attractive qualities in a person. So, I love that you called that out. Okay, so moving on then to the lightning round questions to wrap us up that I ask every guest. So the first one, what's your go-to stress busting activity?
Mm, I love to go on a walk or cross stitch.
Oh, I like that. One of my clients was had a habit of going back to work after like she put the kids down and she'd sit in her bed and open our computer back up. I was like, "Oh, homegirl, we need to find you a hobby." So she has taken to a needle and thread, which is pretty awesome.
Cool. Yes. Ugh.
Um, yeah, and you know what my mom did too? She would always cross stitch. It was a silent night picture. It was a navy with white threading that she would cross stitch and frame, and that would become her go-to gift for a housewarming or is that what you give your pieces away?
So what I do is if I'm doing a gift, I take a family photo and I put it into Chat GPT and I say, make a cross stitch guide off of this photo. And then I cross stitch a family photo for them.
That's so clever. I love
It's,
that.
yeah,
Well
it's
done.
personalized. I don't have mine here, but it turns out so cute. It's so fun.
Yeah, I bet. How clever. Okay, what's the last book or podcast you really loved?
Oh, so I am teaching a mastermind right now on High Road Leadership by John Maxwell. This is a fabulous book. It's High Road Leadership by John Maxwell. It's called Bringing People Together in a World That Divides. And it's easy to take that low road. But when we value all people and we do the right things for the right reasons, we're taking the high road. And so not only do I need to read this because I'm teaching on it, but it's really been great too.
Yeah, but I think it is such a appropriate topic right now because I
Right.
feel like we continue to get more and more divisive, and that just makes me sad. But being able to help lead people through it, man, what a gift. Okay, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you eliminate forever?
No one prepares you for the smell of dry urine on in a boy's bathroom on the toilet. And I would like to never, I mean, even we have a cleaning lady and she does a phenomenal job. And yet I still smell it from time to time if he gets a little tinkle off of there. So I would like to never have to do that.
Yeah, it's never enough. Oh man, I used to
No.
my dad that again, he was in mining and ran land reclamation. Oh, I had to clean his office for so many years. And
No.
granted, it was a great job because I could do it whenever I wanted around my sports. But oh my gosh, like a lot of dudes, a lot of dudes.
Nope.
Uh,
No, thank you.
yeah, it was. I don't recommend. Okay, very last question. Denise, how do people reach you?
Oh, what a pleasure it would be to connect. And Working Moms Redefined 2025 on Instagram is a great way. You'll see an episode with Courtney there from, I don't know, a few months ago as well. That
Mhm.
was fire. So that is the best way on Instagram. I also, so much like Courtney and the Life Management System podcast is part of the Working Moms movement. That's what Working Moms Redefined is for me. So it is a part of Denise Tallcott leadership. And so that is our coaching business where we do keynotes and group facilitations and online master classes and stuff like that. So you can visit it on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all those goodies. But honestly, the fact that you are here listening to this podcast with Courtney, you're doing enough. So yes, you might want to reach out and connect, and I would love if you do so. But if you don't have the capacity to take that on right now to learn more, this is good enough. This is good. What you did today is enough. Check the box. You killed it as a mom, and then maybe we can connect tomorrow.
Amen. And so, Denise, I didn't tell you this before we started, but my assistant texted me and I hit 20,000 downloads today.
Oh my
So,
gosh,
yeah, so
congratulations.
excited. Thank you.
20,000 in a year.
Yeah, yeah, a little over a
Girl.
year, a little over a year. Uh-huh. I
Oh,
know.
what a
Yeah,
win. I'm so glad
yeah,
you shared that with me. Oh my gosh, that's huge. And I think it means even more when somebody else who has a podcast, you're like, that's downloads. That's not even reach. Great job.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so tickled. But I bring it up because I want to thank every single person that's tuning in. I'm so glad that these messages are resonating. People like you, Denise, that are just pouring themselves truly into this population of people. I'm just so honored to be on a journey with you and to be step to step with somebody who cares so much about helping and providing for the women out there. So I will absolutely be linking both Denise's Instagram so you can connect with her there, her podcast. I'm also going to link my first podcast on mom guilt, episode 30. I think that's very relevant. But Denise, thank you so much again for joining us. Friends, thank you for tuning in. And if nobody's told you lately, you're doing a great job. You've got this, mama. If this conversation brings up any guilt about working, missing time with your kids, or wondering if you're getting the balance wrong, the episode you should listen to next is episode 30. Inside that episode, I talk about one of the two things I hear constantly from working moms in my DMs: time, guilt, and the fear that you're missing the best years of your kids' lives. We unpack why that guilt shows up, how the career that you have is actually shaping your kids in very powerful ways you might not see, and why intentional time matters more than perfect schedules. So go listen to episode 30 next. It'll put a lot of what we talked about today into complete perspective for you. See you there.